What is up, guys? Alex McDonald, Larry Cox. What's up, Larry? How you doing?
Doing well on this fair Sunday evening, Alex.
Sunday evening, Sunday. What is it? June the 14th. Yeah,
June the
it's
14th.
and man, it has been blistering hot this weekend. People are tuning in now. You see though, so the comments showing up in that window, Larry.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Here's a little trick for you. You can use it tonight. If you click on one of those comments, it will bring it up on my screen here.
I won't click on it.
Okay.
I mean, I won't click on them. I knew it would.
It will also do it during my show. So if you open this while Danielle and I are live, you're also going to see our comments, and if you click on them, you'll be able to send them out. So go ahead and click on that last one from James. Let's just make sure that's working. There you go. You now have control of the comments, Larry Cox.
All right, let me click it off. If I don't click it off, it just goes off.
It goes off in 20 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
they're set to time out in 20 seconds.
Okay.
Episode 2, data centers. And again, I'll go over how we're doing this. We've already conducted this interview. We did it. When was it, Larry? Tuesday.
We did Tuesday at 6.
Tuesday at 6. We conducted the interview. It's ready to go, and we're going to play that interview during this live episode. That video is also the standalone interview will go live at 9 p.m. tonight on my page, This Week in Rockdale, and it's automatically added to the series that I have set up for data centers. So that will be episodes 1 and 2. I hope that we will be recording episodes 3's interview again on Tuesday. I hope, because the schedule is for that to go live next Sunday. But that's how we're doing these. Yeah, I don't know. Anything to add, Larry?
No, I think, Alex, like we had said last week, it's been a little difficult lining these guests up. So, but we're getting that worked out, and it's working so far.
So far, it's difficult. Look, and make of that what you will. But it's because here's my opinion. The reason it's difficult is because people have made this a contentious issue. And because of that, nobody wants to talk about it in public for fear of the backlash, which is almost, at this point, almost guaranteed to happen.
Alex, I'm going to tell you right now, I talked to some people this week who are developers and such with data centers, and they've been getting death threats, Alex.
Right.
So, that's why, because they have been getting death threats, then you've got these other people know that people are getting death threats, so they're concerned about their safety.
I have I turned off for the video series itself. I've actually turned off comments on those videos. I have plenty of other stuff I post that people can yell at me on, that they can post comments and yell at me. But I have certain comments censored on This Week in Rockdale, because This Week in Rockdale it's a different kind of page, right? It's I don't want a whole lot of cussing and threats and things like that. So I have all of those type of comments filtered, and some slip through, but the majority of them Facebook deals with. And if I didn't do that, I think you might be shocked at some of the things people are saying, simply because we have the audacity to even talk about data centers. right? We have the we have the audacity to try and present both sides of an argument, and yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And Alex, you've known me for a long time, and you know there's nothing off the table for me. I am one of the most open, free speech people on the planet. You would call me an extreme free speecher, probably.
Right.
But you know, I mean, and you know me. I mean, I hold nothing back, and I don't, you know, and just you're right. Some of the things that people have said and are saying it's a little bit crazy, but I look at it this way. There's you can say anything you want, but there's a consequence when you say crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, for me, so I mean, you know the things I've had people, because I have a phone number for my shows, and so I've gotten death threats via voicemail, and I just play them on the show. I play them on the show, and if they're stupid enough to call from their own number and it has caller ID, I'll call the number back and mess with them, just because, you know, I don't give a shit. But yeah, it's insane. And this particular issue, it's brought some characters out of the woodwork. I will say that.
Well, James Corbett just made a look at his comment, Alex.
Yeah, I saw it. I brought it up a second ago.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, well, you know what? Let's say hi to people. We
have a bunch.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes is just going to be you and I chatting. Then we're going to play the interview, and then we'll have time after to field some question. But let's see. Cheryl is here. What's up, Cheryl? Bill Campbell, Semper Fi. Bill, good to see you. Cheryl and Ben are watching. What's up, guys? Charlotte Gellert. Hey, Charlotte. Clayton's here. James Corbett. What's up? How you doing, guys? Catherine Lynn. What's up, Catherine? Sherry Thomas. Hey, Sherry. Mary Boysworth. What's up, Mary? Good to see you. Justin Kenny. His honor, the Right Honorable Judge Justin Kenny. Well, almost.
Judge-elect.
Judge-elect Justin Kenny. What's up, Justin? Good to see you. Let me see. Is that everyone? I think so. Oh, and Vuko. So. Vuko Russo is here. What's up, Vuko?
Yeah. And Miss Thomas, I seen Sherry last night at the concert in Old Town. There was a concert in Old Town last night, Alex. And let me tell you, talking about that heat, how hot it had been. Oh, trust me, you knew it was hot when you was at that concert last night.
I bet it was.
It was blistering good. You know, it's good as usual. A very good show. The concert series ended by the city of Conyers last night. They had their third one, and it was a success. And it was just, you know, a large crowd. You know, and so, you know, very, very. You know, but I did see Miss Thomas there last night, so it was good to see her there. And I've seen a lot of people there last night, but. Like I said, it was steaming hot, Alex.
Mm-hmm. There's Dondra. What's up, Dondra? Who was playing? If you know,
it was Uptown Funk.
Oh, I've seen them. They played at July 4th a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they're a Bruno Mars, band that you know does all the Bruno Mars music and stuff. So yeah, they were there. So yeah, it was like I said, it was a good time had by all, like I say.
Pam Lowry's joined us. Hey, Pam. Cheryl was already here, but hey, Cheryl, we'll say hi again. Dondra, of course, has tuned in. What's up, Dondra? Good to see you. And Danielle is here. What's up, Danny? Hey, Danny, I gave Larry, although her comment has not popped up. And I have a theory about this because Danielle is an administrator on this system I use. So I wonder if it filters her comments, which would be annoying. But George Kalachek's here. But I do see you, Danielle. So thank you for being here. And I guess on Facebook they're seeing her comment. I just don't get it to show. I don't have it to show up here so I can bring it up on the screen. But I see you, Danielle. Love you, girl. Corliss is here. What's up, Corliss? Good to see you. All right, Larry. So we recorded the interview Tuesday. We're going to play the interview for you now, uninterrupted. And we will, I guess, we'll address any comments and questions at the end. I did open the phone lines last time, but nobody wanted to call in. So I will open them up again this evening at the end of the, after the interview, and we'll see if anyone wants to call in. But of course, we see your comments in the chat as well. Yeah, let's play the interview, shall we, Larry?
Let's go for it, and then we'll sit back and watch it too, Al.
All right. On the first episode, we covered the basics, what a data center is, what it does, the myths, the facts, the claims and the confusion, the misunderstandings and misinformation. Tonight, we're going to go deeper on a specific topic, noise. Data centers are loud. Massive cooling systems, backup generators, HVAC equipment, the size of a house sometimes, sitting outside the buildings, all of it running around the clock every single day. And when you start looking into data center noise, you find out pretty quickly that it's a more complex subject than most people realize. These facilities generate noise across a wide range of frequencies, and not all of those frequencies behave the same way. Some carry farther than others. Some penetrate walls and barriers that would stop other sounds in their tracks. And some of them fall outside the range of what the human ear can detect at all, but we still feel them. The other part is this. Before a data center gets built near a neighborhood, somebody needs to be asking the right questions about noise. What will this facility actually sound like? How far will it carry? What mitigation is being put in place? And who's making sure that those standards are enforced? Those questions matter. And tonight, we're going to talk about some of those with someone who actually knows the answers. I'm sitting down tonight with Adam Van Pelt, Business Development Manager for Behrens and Associates, Environmental Noise Control out of El Segundo, California. They specialize in acoustical engineering and noise mitigation, with data centers being a growing part of what they do. So let's go ahead and get into it. Adam, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. I want to jump straight in because I want to keep this to respect your time and the audience's time to about 30 minutes. I want to start with the very basics. What types of noise can people expect to hear from a data center? What are the common sources of that noise?
Yeah, of course. And Alex and Larry, I appreciate you guys having me and being able to delve into some of the details of this and misconceptions and things with noise that are involved in data centers. So commonly with data centers, noise that you're going to hear is associated with a couple things. Number one, depending on what the power source for the data center is, that can be a noise source. If you're using line power and it's coming from a substation, there's not going to be too much there. But if you are doing some behind the meter power, generators of any type, turbines, things of that nature, those will be a noise source that needs to be considered when looking at a data center. On top of that, it also depends on what type of cooling system is involved in the data center. Air-cooled data centers, fans, things of that nature can create a hum, especially as you're stacking more and more on top of each other. If it is a water-cooled closed-loop system, maybe that's a little less. Chillers have some noise signatures to them, but generally those are the biggest noise sources that you come across from a data center.
So that people have a little context, if you're able to, what would that be comparable to? Other industrial uses that we might be familiar with, factories, warehouses, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there's a lot of different industrial type facilities that could have a similar output to this. If you would consider some, maybe large refrigeration type facility that has, refrigerator chillers to keep things cool for maybe food or some type of other item that may need to be temperature controlled. That could be very similar to a data center. Something that maybe requires a little more on the power side, and maybe some generators. I mean, honestly, if you even think of critical facilities such as hospitals and things of that nature, they're going to have backup power generation there, to be able to provide power when maybe the lights go out or the power goes down from some source locally. And so those types of facilities would also have very similar equipment to what would be involved in a data center.
And so, Adam, if I could, I've actually worked at distribution centers before in our line of work, and those distribution centers have had the refrigeration build, the ones that were, so it would be similar to that.
A distribution facility, it would be a very good comparison, along with the fact that usually distribution facilities have many trucks going in and out day and night and all times. And so that, that's something that wouldn't really be involved in a data center. But
you wouldn't have that additional noise. You would just have the noise from the buildings.
Exactly.
And the noise is, and excuse this question, there's a reason for it, but the noise is constant, right? It doesn't necessarily, or at least from the equipment, is going to be constant. It's not going to ramp up and down, maybe through hot and cold cycles or something like that. But in general, it's a consistent level.
In general, yes. Okay. I would agree with that statement, Alex. Of course, if there was, emergency generation that all came on at one time, that would be in an upset condition that could have something. And as you said, as temperatures fluctuate, yes, there's going to be a little fluctuation in the equipment, but nothing's going to be so drastic and immediate that you're going to really notice that fluctuation. It's going to be a pretty constant noise source.
Okay. The reason I ask is because we discussed this in our pre-interview, and I told you at the time I didn't have the numbers, I believe, and I said I would find them. We don't have in Rockdale currently a maximum noise restriction. However, the UDO that they're working on is proposing a maximum noise level of 65 decibels, dBAs actually, at the property line during the day and 55 dBAs at night, which means to me, or which says to me that the data center is going to have to operate at that lower level, the 55 decibels, consistently, because there's no way to ramp it up and down.
No, you are not going to change operating conditions in a way that would change the overall noise signature of the facility in any meaningful way to do something different during the daytime than what you're doing at the nighttime. So the nighttime limit would be the limit that things would have to be looked at and designed to.
Okay. Now, in my research, I've looked at other municipalities, and a lot of them are at 75 dBA. Mm-hmm. A normal speaking volume, at least from my research, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my research is 60 to 65 decibels. But you mentioned that the dBA is on the A spectrum. Can you explain that to all of us? Because I don't think any of us really know what's going on there.
Yeah, of course. So decibel is noise, right? It's actually in pascals. We change it to decibels because it's an easier logarithmic way to group noise and be able to speak about the total. So we're not talking from 0 to 20,000 or something crazy number wise.
Right.
And inside of that, there are things that are called weighting scales. So dBA is a weighting scale. The A weighting scale is meant to mimic the way that humans hear it. It mimics the geometry of our ears, and it deweights some of the frequencies that we don't hear as well. So that would fall in the very low end of the spectrum and the extremely high end of the spectrum. Think of a very, very low bass that maybe is very difficult to hear, and think of a dog whistle, that our ears can't even perceive or tell. And so they don't want to add up all of the noise that could be in those levels that we don't actually hear. And so it kind of looks like a bell curve as you go across the x-axis, which are all the different frequencies, to say this is how much we're going to take off of the standard decibel total at each one of these 1/3 octave band frequencies.
Okay. And a 1 decibel increase, so it's not a linear scale. And I don't know if you're able to answer this question, but a 1 decibel increase is there a percentage for that you could equate it to?
Yeah, so you would never notice a 1 decibel increase.
Okay.
So 0 to 3 decibel increases are what we would define as minimally perceivable. And then a 3 to 5 decibel increase starts to have some perceivability to it. And really, when you get above 5, that's when you begin to be able to perceive a difference. Because noise is logarithmic, it does not add arithmetically, it does not subtract arithmetically. As you get a 10 decibel increase, that is a perceived doubling of noise to someone. So that is the math that's behind that.
Okay.
And I would like to ask a question. So if they're going to have this 55 to 65 dBA limit, is that an easy limit to obtain or maintain?
There's a lot of variables, Larry, that go into that answer. The variables being what are noise levels currently? Where are we currently sitting? If you're already at 55, it's going to be really, really hard to get quieter than that, right? What are the current noise levels in the area? What equipment is being installed? What potential mitigation efforts are being employed? Is it easily achievable? I don't know that I would define it as easily achievable. Is it achievable? I think it can be, but it also, there's a lot of variables, as I said, that kind of go into the math of what all is going on to that location. And also, I think, Alex, you had mentioned they're looking at the ordinance on a property line basis,
yes,
versus maybe a receptor basis. And so there's two ways to look. You see ordinances. It's either at our property line, what are we doing? Or when we're actually coming into contact with something that may be affected by this noise, that's where we really want to understand what noise levels are, right? Are we affecting a party and where they are? Because if we do it at our property line, but nobody's within 1,000 feet of our property line, that doesn't really solve a problem.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Your company is data centers, from what I understand, are a growing part of your business at the moment, and do you consult or advise on noise mitigation? Is that correct?
That is correct.
So for a modern data center coming to a small county like Rockdale, and let's just, I'm just hypothesizing here, but let's assume it's within 500 feet of a residential area. What kind of mitigation measures would you recommend to a developer that they implement now, as compared to, say, 10 years ago?
Right. Yeah, and I think, that's really the crux of the situation. Not only do we do the upfront acoustical engineering to advise on it, but we also execute all the mitigation ourselves. Right. So we have experience in all of this, and it has changed over the last 10 years, both in recognizing, the noise levels and what they can be, but also recognizing the different technologies that are now available. And so the simple answer is that depending on the piece of equipment and where it's located on the property, there are a number of different mitigation technologies that can be employed. From the upfront assessment standpoint, we look at siting. We say, okay, do you have homes on one side of this thing? Let's put the noisy stuff on the other side of the building. Right. And it's really simple. There are barriers, there are walls, absorptive, precast concrete to our panel type with insulation. There are enclosures, chiller enclosures, generator enclosures, different exhaust measures that can have different baffling involved to reduce noise levels. You can do berming. You can do some type of earth, trees. Things of that nature. A lot of times when you get these out of sight, that helps some of the psychological perception of this. And so even a layer of trees, while it may not do a ton from an actual reduction of noise, it does a lot from a perception of noise, for how people.
I was going to ask about that. Do vegetative buffers help with the noise itself, or is it more psychological, out of sight, out of mind type of thing?
Yeah, it's more psychological, Alex, because vegetative buffers can help, but you need a pretty thick, the old adage, trees are 90% air, right? Any of you golfers out there always laugh at that as you hit every branch as you go through there. But that's the old adage, and noise from just a very thin layer, while it doesn't necessarily do anything, from a actual noise reading standpoint, it does do a lot from a psychological standpoint, that you have put a buffer there. It has created a barrier that you don't see the noise sources anymore. And that usually helps a lot with that.
Alex, you've mentioned something in the past on, when you and I have been talking, and you mentioned it the other night when we did our intro show, as far as locations of data centers now versus 10 or 15 years ago, and the zonings. So do you think that also is something that is in data centers we're building now, where they're located and how they're zoned, makes a difference with the noise also?
Yes. So, I mean, a decade ago, I think there were a lot of unknowns when we were zoning these data centers, putting them in place, the equipment that was being utilized then, that have changed over the last decade. And I think there is a plethora of new technologies and technologies that data centers are employing that overall, not even just from a noise standpoint, are much better, much friendlier, much more in tune with what we're looking at today. And so, as we look at these different zonings and the noise ordinances that go along with them, it varies greatly, Larry, from area to area and municipality to municipality on how people are handling this, how they're employing this, potentially using decades-old ordinances that may not take certain things into account, or may be overly burdensome because 30 years ago there was no other industry there. Now there's a ton of industry there. And it's not just the data center, it's everything else that's actually adding to the noise signature of that area. And so you got to be very cognizant of what those rules are, and what else has maybe been built and grown in those different areas in that time from a zoning perspective.
Let me follow up with you on that one. Because you advise, imagine a hypothetical data center developer came to you and said, I'd like to develop here, it's zoned O&I, and the regulations allow for more noise. Would you still recommend to them that they meet the higher standard? Let's say it's 65 dBA in one zoning and 55 in another. Would you always recommend to them, at this point in time, meet the higher requirement?
I think I would always recommend that we look at the impacts and where we may understand that complaints could be driven from, and do it from that standpoint. I wouldn't blanketly say, let's meet this higher ordinance, because it may not be applicable to the location that they're going to.
Yeah, if they're 5,000 feet, if they're in the middle of 500 acres, then it wouldn't matter.
Necessarily burden somebody with something that they don't need. We advise, and how we attack those projects is, we're going to look at this on a project by project basis. We're going to look at ordinance and understand how we're doing that, but we're also going to look at it from what we understand drives, complaints, and if we think there may be underlying things there that could be a driver of those, and how you may attack those.
Right.
The application has to make sense.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to the psychological side of this. And I want to talk about infrasound real quick. Bearing in mind, none of us are doctors here. But you're an audio engineer. You may understand this better than most of us. When somebody says they feel they feel a data center, they're not necessarily hearing sound, but they're feeling something. What is going on there?
Yeah. So, infrasound's a very specific definition. It's 20 hertz below from a frequency range. And so what I'm going to speak about doesn't necessarily just apply to that range. It can be some of the higher frequencies. And when I say higher, just above the 20 hertz, 31.5 hertz, 63 hertz, that range of frequencies as well.
Okay.
But what you're experiencing is sound is pressure. Mm-hmm. It is a pressure wave that travels through the air. The lower the frequency, the larger the pressure wave is, and the further it travels, and the more powerful it is. And so while you may not hear it, you can kind of make it akin to the difference between, somebody singing in a very high pitch and a bass from a subwoofer that you actually can feel a little bit. And right. that is noise traveling through the air, and then you getting the feeling because of the size and magnitude of that wave, the pressure that hits you, it kind of turns mechanical and can you can feel it physically.
So it's the same.
Like if you're at a,
I think I'm about to say the exact same thing.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Larry. Yeah,
like you're at a red light and somebody's beside you and they've got one of those subwoofers, and you can actually hear that vibration. I mean, feel that vibration. Yeah, that's what you're referring to.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Okay. Yes. So with the mitigation techniques that are available to data center developers now, I'll ask, is 100% infrasound mitigation possible? What
Unlikely.
Is unlikely? Okay. What would you?
I don't love to speak in absolutes, Alex, but unlikely. And the reason for it is to mitigate that noise. And let's be really clear. Yes, there is low frequency noise that comes from data centers. Yes. There's low frequency noise that comes from the tires that are running over your road. There's low frequency noise that comes from many different industries. This is not something that is unique to strictly data centers.
Right.
And so this is in the environment. It's out there. It happens. Low frequency noise is generated by many, many different things. So this is not something that has just been created in a data center world. To mitigate that, in a very general sense, to speak at a 30,000 foot view, you need mass. You need things that are bigger, heavier to help to knock down low frequency noise. So is it mitigatable? Yes. Are there ways to knock down levels of low frequency noise and do it in a significant manner? Yes. Is it anything 100% mitigatable? I don't really think so.
Yeah, no, I agree.
When you ask, hey, this is moving in and I don't want to hear this at all, that's really an unreasonable ask to not be able to hear anything that comes from something. Yeah. What we're trying to do is limit the impacts of that or any other industry that may, come into any region.
And I have to imagine that the mitigations we have are pretty darn effective at minimizing the issue, because we're now seeing all over the country, we're seeing companies like Microsoft, Google, AWS, they're actually going back and retrofitting properties with mitigation devices, I will call them, right now to address some of those issues, some of them infrasound issues, right? The low frequencies, the stuff people hear.
Yeah, so you're exactly right, Alex. The technologies have grown and grown over the years, and the solutions that are available in the marketplace now are plentiful. On top of that, I think the data center industry has done a wonderful job of doing retrofits and upfront design work to also limit the noise that is coming from these types of facilities. And so it's not just having to mitigate something after the fact. They're designing and they're taking these things into account on the front end now, where maybe before they weren't as aware that this was going to be such an issue.
Exactly. And I think the key to every bit of this is designing for the problem up front. Now that we know, we knew that power was an issue. We knew that water was an issue. They found ways to deal with that. Everyone now knows that sound is an issue. There are companies like yours now that are working with the industry to help mitigate it, because I even at a meeting yesterday, I heard somebody, and I don't want to diminish what this person said, because they got their information from somewhere, but it was the complaints of headaches and sleep disruption, omnia, nausea, dizziness, vertigo. I've heard people say that it'll make your bones rattle. I've heard people say it will make your bones melt. We're not doctors, Barry. Let's keep that in mind. But as a sound engineer, have you, headaches, sleep disruption, insomnia, of course that can come from noise, but rattling and melting bones, Adam, have you ever come across that?
I haven't come across any melting bones.
I'm going to talk about something in a second here. So
sure.
Adam, are you familiar with concrete saws?
No, sir.
Concrete. So just imagine this saw that's got this.
Oh, concrete saw. Sorry.
Yeah.
Your accent, and your Georgia accent got me there. I thought you said
Georgia
sauce. I was like, I don't know what a sauce is. Yes.
That's not a Georgia accent. That's a hillbilly accent from West Virginia. So I've been in Georgia for 22 years, but that's my hillbilly slang still there. So gotcha. I have been in the concrete sawing industry for 32 years. I ran concrete saws for 20 years. So you know what vibration those cause.
Yes.
My bones have not been melted or shattered. So I mean, and you can testify, if I ran one of those pieces of equipment, there was some serious vibration.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't diminish anything anybody says. Everybody experiences things in different ways.
Right.
But to be able to point the finger and say this is exactly what is causing this, I think is a very difficult thing to do. There are a lot of influences to noise in the community.
I actually agree, because most of these symptoms, headache, sleep disruption, insomnia, nausea, dizziness, vertigo, also symptoms of high blood pressure. So,
and there are also side effects of most medications that are sold by prescription.
Yeah. So again, I understand that loud noises can keep people awake, and that can cause sleep disruption, probably cause some anxiety among people. But the key to all of this is designing and building for it so that it doesn't become a problem. That's what, from my research, that's what the industry has.
That's what they're doing
too. Yeah, that's what they've advanced. That's what they've grown to.
That's why I'm here, right? Is they're bringing us in to make sure they can understand this and help design and solve for these problems up front. They understand the impacts of these. Nobody wants bad press, but we also want to make sure we're getting, the right information out there. And that is where this has progressed to.
So someone who is trying to compare a data center that was built in 2010, it's not apples to apples anymore. A data center being built in 2026 cannot be compared to something that was built in 2010, correct?
No, in no shape, form, or fashion. The technologies have grown, how they are set up, what they are doing. I mean, there was an AI in 2010. There's a million different factors that have changed how a data center is built, designed, run in the past 3 or 4 years, much less the past 15 years.
Right.
And all of those things have progressed as the years have gone on to certainly take a lot of different design considerations, as Alex, as you mentioned, the water, the power, all of those things into account as we are building these data centers of today.
Yeah, and that's why my opinion of data centers has evolved along with the technology. As that has evolved, as they've gotten better at developing these things. You know, it's one of my first jobs, Adam, when I, as a fresh graduate, one of my first jobs back in the 1980s was designing server rooms. It was environmental engineering, and we were responsible for the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, fire suppression. We didn't install the equipment, but we designed the room itself. We were dealing with things like this back in the 80s, and the technology has come so far since then. It's unrecognizable to me, someone who hasn't worked in it for decades.
Certainly.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you've answered. I think you've answered every question we had. I really appreciate you coming on. All we're trying to do is provide people with the effect. We want to get to the truth, which is proving very hard to find online. And with AI, we're trying to bring experts on to provide them the answers that they need. You've been remarkably helpful. You're one of the few guests who have agreed to come on, and that deserves a lot of respect to you, because right now it's a contentious issue. But I thank you. I really appreciate it, Adam. And I know our audience appreciates it.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, having the ability to kind of speak to what I know and what I've experienced. I sit on panels talking about this. I go to open houses and talk about this. So it's something that I'm very involved in, and our company is very involved in. And so appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to join you and speak today.
Anytime. And hopefully, if we do ultimately get data center development in the future here in Rockdale, I know I will recommend your name and your company. Hopefully they'll bring you in as the experts to make sure that we don't have to hear them.
That'd be great.
All right, brother.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all take care.
You too. So yeah, that was our interview with Adam Van Pelt. By the way, I saw questions coming in. The Facebook comments are working. They've been working. I'm talking about a different system here that I use so that I can bring them up on the screen here. I see your questions. I put a post up before we interviewed Adam, asking people to email their questions to me. Only one person did. And we got to a couple of their questions. I will be doing the same for any future interviews we have. I will be putting a post up asking you to email your questions. One caveat to that: you need to include your name and a link to your Facebook profile, because I'm only taking questions. I am only entertaining questions from people that actually live in Rockdale County, just so you know. But Danny asked, what kind of soundproofing do they use on the inside of the building? He did answer that. He talked about certain concretes that will absorb sound. He talked about R value materials, effectively insulative materials that can work to absorb sound and mitigate it. So he did touch on that. Of course, all of this can go much more in depth, obviously, but he hit on, I think, the main points there. Let me see here. Anything else? What are the current levels? Clayton, I'm guessing Clayton's asking about our ordinance. There are no current levels right now, Clayton. There is no maximum noise level in Rockdale. What we do have are time restrictions at the moment. And restrictions on time and activity is what we have at the moment. So no construction between the hours of, I think it's, don't quote me, but I'm going to say between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. You can't do any construction between those hours. There's restriction on when you can fire up your lawn equipment. So those are the current, if that's what you're asking, those are the current levels.
And Clayton just asked about who's documenting the current. Just as you answered, Alex, there is no regulation regarding current noise levels.
Well, and I would ask for whom? Who's documenting the current noise level at the property line for whom? Is there something in particular you're asking about, Clayton? Well, I mean, my answer is going to be the same. Probably no one, because right now there is no
ordinance.
Yes. Right now there is no ordinance. But again,
and you have to remember also, Alex, the only data center we have approved DC blocks was approved under an old ordinance. So I don't think they'll have to abide by a new ordinance.
Probably not, but for all we know, they already are. If you drive out there, it's not loud.
Even when the construction's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I would assume that's what Clayton's asking about is DC blocks. So, I mean, it's quite, the proposal is for 55 decibels at the property line at night, which means that's going to have to be that will be the regulation, because they can't turn the volume up and down, right? If they could, obviously, we would tell them, turn it down. So it'll be 55 decibels. I imagine that DC blocks are very, very close to that. Now, I also want to point this out because it's important. The reason I asked the question about noise levels and the percentages. He said that a 10 decibel increase is effectively doubling the volume of what we hear. So if you figure that the ordinance is 55 decibels and that an average conversation is 65 decibels, you could argue that the data center is half as loud as people having a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you drive out to DC blocks, I think that's pretty accurate.
Chris Curran just made a comment. He was surprised of how quiet it is. And Alex and I have been to the site, and you're right, it is very quiet. I mean, it's not a lot of noise. You know what I mean?
Right. UDAs, yes, you're correct, Bill. The proposal, the 65-55, is in the proposed UDO. It will be the first time Rockdale has actually had a maximum noise level ordinance. Like I said, as of right now, we just have a time and activity restriction on noise. Let me see, what else? How far is the closest residential area from this data center? DC blocks? How close do you think it is, Larry? How close do you think DC blocks are? I'm assuming that's because it's important to understand we aren't talking about any data center specifically, right? This series isn't about DC blocks. It's not about any future project that we know of. This is just blanket information about modern data centers. So I'm assuming these questions all relate to DC blocks. How far is the closest residential area from that data center? I honestly, Vuko, I do not know. Maybe somebody in the chat does, and they can say.
And I think most people are now referring to DC blocks because it is what's there now, and there are some future proposed ones.
Yeah.
But that's future proposed.
Yeah.
Right.
I would suggest to people go drive by DC blocks. Drive by during the day and drive by at night and listen for yourselves.
And I want to advise people, when you're driving by the construction site beside the fire station and the animal shelter, that is not a data center. That is a construction company that's being built. A lot of people think that's a data center.
Right. That's Pittman's new location.
Pittman's new location.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when they were building there, it wasn't extremely noisy. Just you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But God, I think, Alex, what what this series intent is to, this is what we've heard about data centers, right? And this is what we're finding out about power, noise, and water, which are the big three, as we would refer to it as, right? What has been said about them, and then what we're finding out to be more of what the norm is regarding them.
Right.
And then when people oppose them in general, are you really opposing them because of actual information, or are you opposing them out of rhetoric and emotion?
Right.
And that's what my part about this is, right? Is I want to know, is the opposition to them truly out of rhetoric and emotion, or is it about true, actual data that says this does these things? And I'm just telling you, through the research that I've been doing, Alex, I'm having a hard time finding information as to why a data center shouldn't be allowed to be built if it's done under the right circumstance. I really am. Just being real about it,
Yeah. Listen, I've told people I'm not going to respond to their robot, right? When people have started coming at me now with their AI generated research, and none of it is even remotely based in reality, and I'm just not responding to it anymore. It's fair that people are going to ask about data center that's in the works here. I would have thought some of the question would have been answered at the plan. Yeah, of course it's fair. It's not for us to answer, right? This series isn't about DC blocks, but yeah, it's 100% fair that people have questions about about DC blocks. Absolutely. Not sure who
but I do think people also have to understand DC blocks is approved. It's here. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
That's actually happening.
Right.
But people somehow think they're still fighting it, Alex. You know that.
Yes.
They somehow think they're still opposing it, and they can think that all they want, but they're not. That's approved. It's being built. And it's happening.
Yeah,
and even the additional buildings that are going to go up on the site, that's all happening. That's not additional projects. Those are inclusive of the original project.
Yeah,
they're just phased.
That's probably why it's not discussed at the Planning Commission, because the planning phase for that is over and done with. That's long gone. But yeah, I mean, of course, people have questions. And of course, they are fair to ask. But you've also got to be willing to. And I'm not saying you, Catherine. I'm saying that people have to be willing to listen to the answer. And quite frankly, the easiest answer for any of your questions is go drive past DC blocks. Go park outside it, and maybe you'll come away with a different perception. Maybe. I'm not saying you're going to. I'm not saying you have to. But maybe you will. You know what I mean? The technology has. I wish I'd have got this into the interview, Larry, but we'd stopped recording. Because I just as a throwaway comment with Adam as we were saying goodbye to him, I said something along the lines of, it's a shame we don't know up front what they're going to sound like, and he said, well, we do, because we're able to model every bit of it, and they can computer model every aspect of these facilities and know to a decibel how loud they're going to be, how far that sound is going to travel, and the effects of any mitigation that they're going to put in, up to and including vegetative buffers and berms.
And that's with the assistance of AI models.
You're right. It's AI modeling.
Because we discussed that. Remember when we discussed that? I've discussed about when Beth had her heart procedure done, how they used an AI modeling procedure to determine the right instrument, the right valve they were going to put in her, right? And they determined by using this AI model that if they would have used 2 other versions, she would have had a cardiac arrest on the table.
Gotcha.
Because, and that, but this, you're right. They can determine through their modeling procedures.
Yeah. Catherine, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So zoning ordinances generally contain restrictions on what you can place next to other zoning restrictions, right? Put it this way, most ordinances are very hesitant to put industrial next to residential, things like that. And then, of course, there are separation guidelines for that as well, building setbacks and restrictions, things like that. I think that's what you're talking about. And of course, I think those are very important questions to ask in the planning phase. But yeah, DC Blocks is well past that planning phase. They're already zoned, they're permitted, and I'm assuming that they are building within the zoning restrictions, the bulk
that
restrictions
existed at the time,
for
they were approved.
property.
Yeah,
I don't know that the UDO is. Again, I haven't been through the new UDO or the proposed UDO. I got a link to it the other day, and I was going to download it and start going through it. And I don't know that there are any changes to setbacks and things like that for particular zoning. I don't know if
they are recommending setback changes, Alex, but I think all that's still, nothing's official.
Yes, it's all up in the air. It's all proposed right now. Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to get in. Again, maybe in the last episode, I'll get into some of that. The opposition, the funding for the opposition, why this is so well organized and has suddenly popped up and become a thing. All I say to people right now is, if you're getting your information from AI, you are most likely not getting valid information. And again, you can put that to the test simply by driving past DC Blocks. Or not even past it, go drive to it and sit there. And I think many people would have a vastly different perception if they did that. But then, a lot of people aren't going to do it simply for that reason. Larry, it might prove them. It might prove to them that they're useful idiots for they're acting as useful idiots for a certain certain group of people.
Well, actually, Alex, on our last show, there was actually somebody I'm going to get to call in because he mentioned something to me the other day about this exact thing about the funding, where things come from, opposition, and stuff. And he made this comment to me, and I'm not going to steal his comment. I'm going to let him make the comment. I'm going to let him call in and make the comment. And it's a very valid comment, and I think it's going to take some people aback a little bit by what he says, because it's a true and valid comment that I think people need to hear, and we'll just see what impact it has. But I do think when we do our wrap-up show, I think we can do more commentary, if that makes sense.
Yep. Noise rules are pretty straightforward. The noise rules here it'll be 55 decibels, right? Because they're going to have to meet the strictest standard, obviously. The delta change in noise will likely be the most challenging. I imagine that the UDO is going to allow for a certain percentage of, say, backup generator time per year. It's inevitable that people's power go out, and that will be the biggest shift, right? That will be the I guess the largest delta will be when backup generators kick on. And when those things are permitted, I haven't seen the permits for DC blocks, so I don't know what their permit allows for. But usually there are pretty strict restrictions that go along with those permits on the amount of time that they're allowed to run backup generators for. Of course, daytime operations and nighttime operations do vary slightly because you're going to have people coming to work, right? And you're going to have their cars coming in. In the case of data centers, not many people. We'll get into that on the last one. But they're going to be their cars coming and going throughout the day. General office and landscaping type noise will occur during the day. But you know, their floor is going to have to be 55 decibels if that's what our UDO says. And again, a conversation is 65 decibels. So,
and like I said, and we'll see what happens with that. Alex, and then like somebody that did ask a question about the vibration noise and that kind of stuff. Felicia, if you go back and watch the interview, the segment that we did, Alex, we did ask that question, and it was addressed by our expert. A lot of that was.
Yeah.
But no, Alex, I think when we heard, tonight, about mitigation, about, data centers not being the same that were even 3 years ago with the technology. And I think you're right, given the advice to go out and just sit across the road from the DC block one and hear what you don't hear. Right. And you're right. I mean, when people actually do that, it might take away some of their luster, their fight.
Yeah. Well,
they don't want that.
Most people are shocked at how quiet they actually are. Is what happens. Documenting current noise levels is important for the citizens. Where? Again, this all comes back to where. DC blocks is a done deal, if that's what you're referring to. If you're talking about future development, I would imagine that's a point to bring up with the people that are creating the new UDO.
Well, and I would say that's up to the county, right? When the county is telling them they have to meet this standard, then the county is going to have to go and measure and see what the measurements are now.
But here's the thing. If the restriction is 55 decibels, does it matter what the existing noise level is? I mean, sure. If so, let's say I'm not sure what the purpose would be if you're not going to hold somebody to another level. If the point of documenting the current noise level is to restrict development to that noise level, you'd be talking about setting up some kind of decibel meter, say in the middle of 20 acres of forest, measuring that noise floor, and then comparing it to what might go there in the future. My question would be, for what purpose? For what purpose? Obviously, anything that goes there is going to be louder than trees. So before we start mandating that people spend time and money measuring something, there has to be a reason to measure it. I'm just curious what the reason would be.
Well, Clayton, that's the thing about it. They're not the rules yet. They're proposed rules. So there need to be rules. And then the rule would be is if you build it, you have to meet the standard. So they would have to meet that standard.
Right. Would have to meet that, again, 55 at night, 65 during the day.
Well, I know, I'm just going to talk off topic for a second, Alex. So I know where there could possibly be a project that may go on. There's a construction company there now on parts of one of those sites. And I would say their noise level is higher than that now. And the new business coming in would require to be less than what's there now if the new UDO comes in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, so, I obviously the UDO, I'm assuming the sound restriction is going to be by zoning because you'd be putting any mechanic shop out of business. If you have a maximum 65 decibel restriction, just blanket restriction county-wide, there are a ton of businesses that simply won't be able to operate under that restriction. And
that's my point. From one location, I know that where maybe something might be proposed in the future, there is a construction company there that actually works on heavy equipment. And I guarantee you they're louder than that right now. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, John, I don't disagree. If the noise floor of trees is 10 decibels and something gets built there that's going to be at 55 decibels, it's going to be louder for sure. But if the zoning permits for it to be built there, what do you do? Other than say, yeah, no, sorry, no development whatsoever in Rockdale. Your kids are louder than, I have to tolerate this in my neighborhood. Kids are way louder than 55 decibels.
Alex, if you would build a factory, if you would build a distribution center, if you would build a lot more other things that have all this street traffic, they would be louder than what I perceive a data center would be. Because the data center does not have, in the last show we're going to talk about it, they're not going to have all that additional noise.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's relevant to the noise show right now.
Yeah, I mean,
a data center is not going to have the truck and street traffic, in and out traffic, that factory or a distribution center would have. Not going to. Plus, a factory or a distribution center is going to have the noise that a data center has. Just being real.
Clayton, look, brother, I went over this last week. I'm not doing live shows for these interviews. Number one, so that it doesn't get derailed by stupid questions from the audience. And yes, I said it. You had the opportunity to email questions. Only one person did. You had your chance to ask the expert we chose to bring on. You had the chance to ask him questions, and you didn't.
And there are no noise rules. There are proposed UDO changes that are not even in place yet. There are no rules.
The person to discuss that with is at the county. It's not anything related to data centers. It's a county regulation that anyone that falls under it is going to have to comply with. Any questions about that are for the county. Yeah, but this is precisely why these are recorded interviews.
This is what he's, and I think this may have been even off, Alex, when we talked to him, is, whatever, when they come, when any industry comes to them and talks to them about levels they have to maintain, They look at what level it is, and then they look at what mitigation it is they have to do for them to obtain what they need to obtain. And that's what'll happen here. The county will set their limitations. Whoever builds anything in Rockdale County moving forward, and it won't just be a data center, it'll be whatever. They will have to comply with these new UDO rules, and they will have to do whatever mitigation it takes to be within that new UDO. What it is.
Yeah. There are, yes. By the way, Felicia, the interview itself has been posted to my page This Week in Rockdale. Just the standalone interview, it got posted at 9:00. So you can go watch that. It's the interview with the noise mitigation firm, and they address the mitigation techniques for dealing with infrasound, low frequency sounds. It's a half-hour interview. You can watch that. It's going to be this, I'm deleting this when we're done, just to keep the clutter out. So hopefully that answers your question. He addresses it, and it's in the interview. There are current noise rules. Again, they are time. Right now, they are simply time and activity based rules at the moment. This UDO, this new UDO, this proposed UDO, I should say, is looking to implement a maximum noise floor restriction. Like I said, 65 decibels during the day, 55 at night, measured at the property line.
And you're right. And those rules don't say, and they don't talk about your air conditioning running. They don't talk about refrigeration. They don't talk about that. They talk about construction. If you're a mechanic shop, they talk about the hours of operation, which you can make the noise that you do, those things.
Correct.
And a distribution center, a data center, a factory are different types of things that create different types of noise that would not be included in the current UDO. Yeah. And that's what we have to understand.
Yeah. And that's why I'm hoping that these, again, I haven't been through the UDO yet. I'm hoping that these noise floor restrictions only apply to certain zonings, because otherwise, like I said, you're going to be putting oil change shops and mechanic shops and anywhere that makes noise beyond the level of a conversation, you'll be putting those people out of business. You'll be effectively shutting them down. So hopefully they've thought this through. Again, you can make in fact, Charlotte just said it. You can make comments. The public can make comments on the proposed UDO on the county's website, and if you have your concerns, that's where to address them, so that
And there will be a hearing at the Planning Commission about the new UDO, and you'll be able to go there and speak and sign up to speak also about concerns regarding the new UDO.
Noise ceiling, James. 65 decibels during the day, 55 decibels at night is the proposed noise ceiling. So, yeah, both of which, effectively conversational levels, the same noise level as a conversation. But yeah, drive by. We have a data center up and running right here in Rockdale. Drive by DC blocks and judge for yourself how loud it is. It's a very simple experiment. Drive by and judge for yourselves. Again, just the interview part went live on my channel at 9:00. So if that's what you want to hear is our interview with the noise expert, then just go watch that video.
Charlotte put up there where they are, Alex, in the new UDO, the data center regulations, and then mining is in another one.
What's your understanding of fundamental national noise rules? Clayton, I have zero understanding of fundamental national noise rules. I'd be surprised if there are any.
Well, I know what we're going to pay attention to is what the rules are in Rockdale County.
Yeah. The rules for Rockdale County, I think, are going to be more relevant. Yeah.
Which interview is being done Tuesday, power or water?
Don't know yet.
We don't know. We do have one scheduled. The person we're going to interview had a personal matter that they were dealing with. They had a death in the family. So that's why we were going to interview them last week, Al. That's why that was postponed, is they had a death in the family.
Right.
So we will be interviewing, taping one this week, and then hopefully that'll be our. We'll see what our show is next Sunday. It's dependent on a couple of things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as of right now, don't know. Should know more tomorrow. And again, as soon as I know, I will be putting a post up asking you if you have questions to email them. And well, the instructions will be in the post. You'll see them. Like I said, in fact, John Bowers is here. The only person that actually sent in questions was John, and we appreciate it, John. Thank you.
I don't think we have anything else to talk about.
No, I think we're done.
Yep, I think so. Like I said, and we'll take care of whatever we take care of during the middle of the week, and by Wednesday we'll be putting something out about what we're doing Sunday.
Yeah. Well, again, if all goes to plan, you would be surprised how difficult it is to get people to come on and talk about this. If it wasn't as contentious, and if people weren't as tribal about it as they are right now, it would be we would have no problem lining up guests. Unfortunately, where we are, right, Larry? It is what it is. It's not easy right now to get people who are willing to sit down in front of a camera and talk about this industry.
No. And I get it.
Oh, I get it entirely. I get it. Like I said, just the comments that are auto-deleted from my Facebook page. I get it. Because it's ridiculous. It's very well-funded opposition. Let's put it that way.
And I can't wait to talk about that on the last show, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited to talk about that on the last show.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here.
Got it. Later. Thanks,
guys. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, keep an eye out for next week, and we don't know who it's going to be yet, but we should know by the middle of the week, and we'll let you know. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.